Special Hellie pod this week coming to you from lovely Scottsdale, Arizona, in the backyard of good buddy and Hall of Fame quarterback, Kurt Warner. We are going over everything. Going to be previewing the AFC and NFC championship game, talking about the GOAT Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers and the young guns in Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen. This is going to be a great show. Tons in store for you. He's also weighing in on the Deshaun Watson situation. Is Goff the right guy for the Rams? And can Wentz be fixed? Kurt Warner weighing in on all of this. And as always, we are brought to you in part by DraftKings Sportsbook. The return that we have all been waiting for is finally here. The UFC's most notorious icon stepping back into the octagon this Saturday. Be sure to check out DraftKings Sportsbook, the official sports betting partner of the UFC, for a shot to turn $1 into $257. That's right. New users bet $1 on Conor McGregor to win by knockout in the first round. If he does, you are winning $257. What kind of a great deal is that? And, oh, by the way, you can bet on the NFC and AFC championship games as well. DraftKings is safe, secure, and reliable. It's very easy for you to deposit and withdraw your money at your convenience anytime. Download the top-rated DraftKings Sportsbook app right now and use the promo code HelliePod when you sign up to turn $1 into $257 if Conor McGregor wins by first round knockout. Place your bet and watch the fists fly this week. And that's code HelliePod for new players to turn $1 into $257 for a limited time only at DraftKings Sportsbook. Must be 21 or older, New Jersey, Indiana, or Pennsylvania only. Restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or in Indiana, 1-800-9-WITH-IT. And we are brought to you by the finest athleisure apparel on the planet. My good friends at Vuori, that's Vuori, have been kind enough to allow me to give you 20% off on your first order today. These clothes are awesome. And these days they're making everything. It goes beyond their awesome core shorts with the built-in liner that you can wear to hoop or yoga or ride the Peloton, and the great t-shirts they make and the hoodies and the sweatshirts. They're now making pants. They're making flannels. They're making an awesome vest that I'm wearing today as well. Check them out. Vuori, Vuori, clothing.com/HelliePod for 20% off your first order today. All my guests get a box of Vuori gear. Kurt Warner's already told me he is anxiously awaiting its arrival. And without any further ado, it's the Hellie Pod from Kurt Warner's backyard in Scottsdale. Well, first off, good to be back here and not in your gym playing basketball.
That is a good thing for you.
Where
that is a
I got
good thing
worked.
for you. You did get worked last time.
And still bring it up.
It's been a while from COVID. I want to get back in there and play and give you a second chance to redeem yourself, you know? Because you talked a good game and it just, you didn't back it up.
Didn't come to fruition.
No,
I had some back issues, Super Bowl a couple years
Oh,
ago.
here it is. The back issues, was tired, Super Bowl.
Never gonna let me hear the end of it.
Never.
Well, we're out here on the football field. The gym's over there, so you'll be back in there shortly. But let's talk about this unbelievable weekend of games that we had and what's on the horizon. The NFC Championship is set, right? It's Brady and it's Rodgers. You couldn't have drawn that up any better.
Come on. I mean, we knew once, Aaron won on Saturday. We were in for a treat. Whether it was Breeze or Brady, didn't matter. So many great storylines. And so I can't wait. I actually get to call the game for Westwood One. So I'll be
with Kevin?
With Kevin Harlan.
That's
so
great.
I will be at Lambeau Field. And so I can't wait. And again, there's just so many, Brady, it's ridiculous what he's done. And now, with the new team. And then you have Aaron on the other side. That's, going to be our MVP in my opinion. And he's only been to one Super Bowl. That is the crazy thing. And you think about it, this will be his fifth NFC Championship game, the first one in Lambeau Field as well. And so, just so many great storylines on that side because we've got the history of the game, especially at the quarterback position. So I can't wait to call it. I can't wait to kind of get into the film and dive in and see how this is going to play out, especially when knowing that Tampa Bay kind of worked Green Bay the first time out.
Yeah.
I mean, they made Aaron,
Look
of
pedestrian.
all the games, that he's played this year, that's about the only one that he hasn't, played at an MVP type level. And so fascinated. But Lambeau Field can be the ultimate neutralizer. I know I covered a game that the Packers did, or that they played against Carolina a number of weeks back, and they were just talking about that. They're like, the field is different. So the footing is something that we feel like we gain an advantage. Obviously, the weather in Green Bay is different.
Would you say the field is different? Why is it different than every other field?
Yeah, it's hard to say, but sometimes with irrigation, and I remember when I used to play in San Francisco, it was the same way, where like the turf was kind of, like a wet turf. And so if you didn't have your feet underneath you, whereas, you go to a stadium that has turf or that has really good field, and you don't have to be quite as balanced. And so we would go and play in San Francisco, and I would find our guys slipping as they were making their cuts because they weren't used to it. And so you get used to that because you practice on it and you play on it every single week. And so you understand, okay, what do we need to do? And you remember back to when they played against the Titans a few weeks ago, and it's snowing, and you're watching and you're like, my gosh, it doesn't even look like Green Bay's playing on snow. I mean, they're just moving like normal. And so you get used to playing that way, especially when it's a soft, kind of wet surface that will move on you a little bit. That can be a transition for teams that have to come in there.
When you hear these numbers, Tom Brady headed to his 14th championship game, his 9th in 10 years. I mean, what goes through your head? Joe Montana played in 7, and Tom Brady has won more championship games than Montana's played in.
I mean, it's hard to fathom. When you play the game and you understand how hard it is and how so many things need to go in your favor to have that kind of consistent success in this business. And so, I mean, when you say stuff like that, it's just, I mean, it's incredible. I mean, we're talking about the possibility of a 10th Super Bowl. I remember growing up thinking to myself, all right, I'm going to play in 5 Super Bowls, because at that time, nobody had played in 5. You know, you had Bradshaw and Montana that had played in 4, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to play in 5 Super Bowls. And that was kind of the standard. And now Tom's going for his 10th Super Bowl, and like you said, so many championship games. I mean, it's unfathomable, really, because you do understand how much parity is in the league. And again, we'll take it the flip side and go, we got Drew Brees and Aaron Rodgers, surefire first ballot Hall of Famers. They both played in 1 Super Bowl.
Right.
They both played in 1 Super Bowl, and this guy's played in 9 at this point. I mean, it's incredible. And, you just have to tip your hat to him and to what they did in New England. But writing another chapter here, because I also know how hard it is to go to a new place and try to establish yourself and feel good within a new offense and try to get things clicking in a new environment. And here he is, his first year in Tampa, and they're in a championship game with a chance to play in another Super Bowl.
You've done that. You've won a Super Bowl. You've gone somewhere else. You reached a Super Bowl. With Brady and Arians and all the talk, at mid-season about them butting heads, how much did you actually make of that?
Well, I mean, a lot of it. I mean, I still don't feel like Tom Brady is Tom Brady yet in that offense. I still feel like he's a little uncomfortable, and they're doing things that aren't necessarily what he's done through the course of his career. Now, he's probably surrounded with better talent than he's ever had, so he takes more chances with the football than he ever has before. But I do worry about it. There's times that I just feel like Tom is late and he yanks the ball and he's not fully comfortable with what they're doing. And so I've kind of thought throughout the year that may catch up to them at some point. But this is a really, really talented team that goes beyond Tom Brady. I mean, all the weapons, their offensive line is coming together. They got a really good defense, especially their front 7. Their linebackers are really good. We saw that come to fruition, yesterday in the divisional championship or divisional game against Breeze, that they made a bunch of plays there. So I think they're good enough to overcome some of those issues. The question will be, will they be able to do it against a really good Green Bay team on their home field? But I do make a lot of that. I mean, just watching Tom, and that to me is what I'm always watching, just the comfort level of a quarterback. And is he playing the way that he's always played? And I feel like Tom is still a little bit off from the great Tom Brady that we've seen for so many years.
And you attribute that to being in a new offense or with Arians as opposed to just getting older.
Well, yeah. I mean, I'm not a guy that really buys into this. You just fall off the cliff at some point. Guys that keep themselves in great shape. And, I come out here and throw all the time. And I feel like I could go out on an NFL field and make every throw that I need to make
I know
right now.
You do.
I do. There's not a question about it. And, and because I throw and because I do it. So it's not one of those things where I feel like you have to be able to throw it far enough. And Tom Brady can throw it far enough. And so to me, it's more just watching his body language when he throws. Is normally he's comfortable, he anticipates, he's laying the ball. This year there's been a lot more throws that are really hard throws. And I attribute that to when you're late on a throw, you usually have to throw it a lot harder than you normally would.
Just put extra zip on.
Yeah, because it's just like, oh, there it is. Oh, as opposed to, oh, it's coming open. Let me lay it to where my guy's going to be. And so I've seen a lot of that with Tom Brady this year. Is his body language is moving faster and kind of with more intensity than it normally does. And that to me usually means I'm trying to play makeup a little bit, right? I wasn't quite sure how that was going to play out, or I wasn't quite sure how my receiver was going to run that. Oh, now it's open. Now let me catch up to that throw. Where, in New England, he was very comfortable with what they did. So there's still a little of that goes on that I attribute, all to new system, new feel, trying to get comfortable with new players. And it's not just the same old Brady, although he's still got the ability to step up and make any throw, big throws at big time moments. And that's what helps separate them because they are a good enough football team.
So if it's not quite the same old Brady, is it still the same old Rodgers?
Well, I think this is probably as good of Aaron Rodgers as we've ever seen. And the reason I say that is because, once again, Aaron hasn't lost his ability to throw the football. And so, as long as that's still there, now it's about the things that are around him. And, I felt like the last couple years when Aaron was with McCarthy, it was really about him feeling like he has to do everything, feeling like he has to make every play. And so it was Aaron, instead of playing on schedule where he didn't really trust the system, it was more Aaron having to play off schedule over and over and over again. And we saw greatness. We saw Aaron be Aaron, but it's hard to live in that world. I don't care how good you are. It is hard to live in that world where you feel like you have to be that guy every single game, every single snap. He's now in a system that makes the game easier for him, that creates easy throws for Aaron Rodgers. So now let's give Aaron Rodgers 15 or 20 easy throws in a game, and then let's let Aaron be Aaron the rest of the time. And what you get is 48 touchdown passes and 4 or 5 interceptions. You get this kind of Aaron Rodgers because the system is working for him unlike I think it's ever worked for him before. And so now it's just the best of all worlds is Aaron comes in playing and having fun and enjoying the system and realizing, oh my gosh, the game doesn't have to be as hard as we made it for so long. Now the game's easier. And, when you need me to make 4 or 5 plays in a game, I can still make 4 or 5 great plays in a game. And now you put all that together and you've got a team that's playing with great confidence, an offense that's number 1 in the league. And that to me is why, because you still have Aaron Rodgers, but now you've got something that couples with Aaron Rodgers that just makes this a perfect fit for what they're trying to do. And I'm sure, I even talked to Aaron earlier this year about that, kind of like, okay, what was it like when the system first came in? And he's like, well, it wasn't like I didn't buy in, but at the same time, I questioned everything because it was so different than what we had done before. I questioned, why are we doing this? And why do we need motion on every play? And why are we in tight line? Why? And, he came to realize that, what McFleur was doing, LaFleur was doing is just, bringing it in and making the game easier in that setting. And then they've allowed Aaron to go, okay, I like all your stuff. Now, how can I tie in what I do really, really well to what we're trying to do as a team? And now Aaron's been able to bring his flair to this offense. So it's just expanded and become a more complete offense. And everybody has a hand. Everybody feels like they have ownership in this thing. And there's nothing better, right? As a quarterback, you can have a great coordinator, but it's never quite as fun when it's just like, okay, it's his offense and I got to run his offense.
Right.
It's much more fun when you go, it's our offense. And this is, where Matt really excels. And this is where I excel. And now we've had the ability to fit that together. So now we've got the best of everything. And I feel like I have true ownership in this offense. It's not Matt's offense. It's our offense. And that's exactly how everybody feels there, how Aaron feels, and Matt LaFleur feels.
Well, it's so funny you say it. We had Mercedes Lewis on the podcast a few weeks ago. And I said, what percentage of the plays that you guys actually run in a game come from LaFleur, and what percentage come from Aaron? And he thought about it for, he took a 5-10 second pause. He said, probably 55% is Aaron either calling the play or checking out of a play to something he likes at the line of scrimmage, and the rest is what we run that LaFleur brings in. And I wondered how many quarterbacks in the league right now are calling the majority of the plays. A handful? You can probably count them on one hand, right?
I think different systems are different. And, there's so many ways to go about looking at that. Like, I don't think a lot of players are calling their own plays. I think, a lot of systems will have, what we call check with me's or alerts,
right,
where it's simply, here's the play call, and here's what we can go to off of this play call. So the quarterback goes up and sees the look or sees the front shifted or whatever it might be, and he alerts or changes it to what he wants. And then there's other systems that say, okay, here's our play, and within, this formation, you have the ability, if you see man-to-man or if you see, pressure, to check to these 2 or 3 different things. And so, how do you look at that? I don't think anybody's going up and necessarily calling all their own plays, but I know they have great trust in Aaron and what he sees on a football field. And so with that, I think they open up a lot more of the playbook to Aaron to go, this is what we want to run. And if you like the look, then run what we call. But if you see something unique because we trust you, go to whatever you want, go to whatever you feel comfortable with and attack what you see, because that's what's going to make us great, is using what you do so well and not trying to stymie that or say, oh, you got to stay with what we're doing. We're going to put trust there. And Aaron, by the same token, is going to trust when there's not those things, or when Matt sends in a play, hey, this is what we want to do. And we'll stay with some of these things a little bit more than maybe I would in the past, because I trust what we're trying to build here. And so it is a give and take, but I do know that they give Aaron a lot of freedom to have the whole playbook at his disposal as much as possible, because he's a rare beast, and he sees things that not everybody is able to see at the line of scrimmage.
One more question on the NFC Championship game before we move over to the AFC. How much is that game that they played earlier in the year where Aaron Rodgers did not look like Aaron Rodgers? It was his worst game of the year.
Yeah.
He had a couple early picks. That just set the tone for the whole game. How much is that going to affect how they approach this game?
It always does. You always go back and say, okay, why? Why we played so good all year? What did they do to us? Or how did we get out of, our rhythm to allow them to affect us the way that they did? And I think a big part of it was the pressure that they put on Aaron, to force him to have to throw things before he wanted to and be a little uncomfortable in the pocket. And so that's going to be something to watch, because I think the Packers' offensive line was really the story of the weekend for me. Was they dominated that Rams defensive front that we had all talked about, and Aaron Donald and all this stuff. I mean, they dominated up front in the run game and in the pass game. And, they've had some issues, and David Bakhtiari out. But I think that's really where it's going to start. If you can run the football and give Aaron the ability to sit back there and feel comfortable, everything's going to be different. And, we could say the same on the other side, right? We've seen it with Tom Brady, too. You make him uncomfortable, he's a different guy. You make any quarterback uncomfortable, they are different players. And that's what happened the first time. And so Packers have to go in and say, okay, why did that happen? And how do we prevent that from happening this time around?
Can they do it? Do you like them in this one?
I do. I do like the Packers in this one. I like the way that they're playing. I like the advantage they have on their field. That I do. I think they're going to play their game, and I think it's going to play in their favor. And not that they're going to blow this thing, out of the water. I think there's two really good teams, and Tampa's definitely able to go in there and win. But I do like Aaron getting another Super Bowl chance.
That'd be something after they draft a quarterback in the first round.
I know.
This stat that I saw was just crazy to me. The Packers were 15, 19, and 1 in the 35 games before they got LaFleur. In LaFleur's first 35 games there, they're 28 and 7. Isn't that wild?
It is wild.
And the pieces aren't that different.
No, pieces aren't that different. But again, it goes back to what we were talking about earlier, is that I really believe that Aaron had put so much on his shoulders, and he was trying to be this special Aaron Rodgers every game, every day. And we've got some great, talented quarterbacks in this business. I mean, we could look at Deshaun Watson. He just came off an unbelievable season. The team was what? 4-12.
Right.
Why? Because he's got to be special all the time. Russell Wilson, we've seen him be special at times too. But it's hard to sustain that, especially come playoff time against good teams. And, that's what was happening with Green Bay, is they were in a lot of games, but they just couldn't finish because it was like, Aaron, you got to make every play. If you don't make every play, we're going to lose. And again, he's great, but doesn't matter how great you are. If you have to do that at the quarterback position, you're not going to win a lot of games. And now he doesn't have to do that. And he's still playing at an unbelievable level, but it's not asking him to play outside of himself every single game and numerous times. And thus, that little difference, Aaron comfortable, getting a little bit of help, calculates into a lot of wins as opposed to a few wins.
So we have the old guys that we all root for, right? Because I appreciate longevity in sports maybe more than anything else now. And then in the AFC, you have the young studs. And it's Mahomes again, assuming that he's going to be healthy. Andy Reid, we're taping this on Monday morning. Andy Reid said that he's passed all the concussion protocol so far that he had to do after the game, and I'm sure he'll be going through that all week. But I'm assuming he's going to be there.
But I texted him this morning, and he said, yep, all good. I'm
really?
going to be good. I'm going to be ready to go. So, again, we feel like that as players anyways. Like, we're going to be there. We're going to be playing. But he did. He hit me right back and said, hey, I'm good. I'm going to be ready to go. So I'm assuming the same thing, that he'll be ready to go.
All right, so he's going to be going, and then you have the Bills, who look great against the Ravens. I mean, that was a close game until that interception on 3rd and goal just completely turned it around. That was an incredible play and kind of a boneheaded throw by Lamar.
Yeah, and we talk about it all the time, is that this is what playoffs are all about, is that you expect every game to be close. And oftentimes it comes down to who makes those critical mistakes. We could look, really in every game that was played this weekend, and it was critical mistakes that cost every team that ended up losing, in this divisional round. And so I do believe that the Bills are the better team. They were the better team than the Ravens, and so I wanted to see the Bills win. I made a comment on our, Game Day Morning show the other day that I'm one of these guys, and yes, I played in the dome and I played inside, but when it comes playoff time, I just want to see every game played without weather, in a dome, so we don't have to worry. I mean, because we watched that game, and you see Justin Tucker, missing kicks that he'll never miss.
One of the best kickers of all time.
Right, he's never going to miss those kicks. And then you see Josh Allen, airmailing a bunch of these long throws where he's been so good all year long. And what I hate is I don't want to ever come after a game and go, you know what, if it wasn't for the weather, I know Josh Allen makes those throws, or I know Justin Tucker makes those kicks. I just want to put everything in a dome, and I want perfect conditions, so it's simply just mano y mano. Whichever team goes out and plays the best, because there's certain things you just can't control. And I'm all for home field advantage, and I understand that's why we play, but a 40-mile-an-hour wind is not home field advantage. It affects both teams in a negative way, and I just want to see Josh Allen play his best football in the biggest moments. I want to see Lamar Jackson have the opportunity to play his best football in the biggest moments. And so, I always worry about those elements. And even in that game, I felt like the Bills were the better team, but because they had to throw the football all over the place, the elements affected them. So it was a lot closer game than it may have been otherwise. But again, it leads to a great football game and a great, huge play by Johnson that separates them and gets them the win. But that's just me. I want to put everybody in a situation where it's like, you can put your best foot forward, and I just want the team that performs the best in those 60 minutes to advance on.
So I feel like we've known what Patrick Mahomes is from the time that he was the starting quarterback in KC. He's been wowing us with all these crazy throws and, odd arm angles, and he can move, and his arm strength, he checks every single box. Josh Allen, I don't know that I can remember a quarterback who has improved as a thrower from one year to the next as much as he has. Can you?
Well, I mean, I've always said that I think that's one of the hardest things to ever do is when you look at a guy and you kind of have their MO like, okay, he's a 58% passer. Right. He's always been a 58% passer all the way back to college and first few years in the NFL. You're very seldom going to see a quarterback, jump up in terms of what accuracy means. Now, we know in this NFL, completion percentage is completely different than it was 5 years ago, 10 years ago. And so it's hard to just look at the percentage, even though we'll do that here with Josh Allen. But, I mean, he basically went from a 58% passer his entire life to a 68% passer this year.
In 1 year.
And they don't just throw dink and dunk throws. I mean, they push the ball down the field. And so it has been pretty amazing to watch his transition. Now, I will say that I think there's a lot of things, his balance, his technique when he throws. There's some things there that I always felt you could build off of. But he also still has some technique issues, but he is just in a zone this year and playing at a level that, quite frankly, an MVP level. I mean, if Aaron didn't just blow this thing out of the water, or you didn't have Patrick Mahomes, who's Patrick Mahomes.
Right.
I mean, in most seasons, Josh Allen's probably winning the MVP in the National Football League. And it is incredible to see where he's gone from 1 year to the next, how confident he's playing. The fact in the divisional game, I mean, I don't even know what the stats were, but, they came out and went like 19 passes to 1 run, in the middle of a 30, mile an hour wind and just said, hey, we believe in that guy, our quarterback. That's how we got here. We're going to put it in his hands. But it has been fun to watch his ascension. Let's not discount the impact of Stephon Diggs.
Incredible.
And what he's meant to Josh Allen and to that football team. So that makes a huge difference when you can have a guy like that, that plays at that level, a true number one in every situation to play with you. But I'm with you. Josh Allen has been a great story this year. He has been fun to watch, and he has done it consistently. I think that's the cool thing is that you could see guys, tear it up for 5-6 games and then kind of level back off to become what they've always been. Man, he has just continued to go up, and he has this team believing that they can beat anybody in any given moment, and that's what's going to make this AFC Championship game so much fun.
Well, and I just love the fact that Buffalo's back.
Right.
They're in a title game for the first time in 27 years. Kansas City's such a great football town. I think the NFL's better when Cleveland is good and Cleveland is back and appears to be, headed in the right direction for quite some time. Let's break this AFC Championship game down. We talk about the quarterbacks. The Bills' defense held the Ravens to just 3 points in that game. Kansas City's defense can turn it up at times. If you're handicapping this one, how do you see it going into Sunday?
Well, I mean, I'm going to lean towards the champs again. I mean, Patrick Mahomes is just different. And, that's the bottom line is we can look at teams all we want. But ultimately, it comes down to the difference makers on each team. And Patrick Mahomes is the ultimate difference maker. That it's just hard for me to go against him because of what we've seen from him. And I think the key with Patrick Mahomes is we've seen him play bad, for periods of time. In the Super Bowl, he didn't play very good for 3 quarters.
But never a full game.
But then in the middle of 1 quarter, I mean, he can explode for 3 touchdowns, 4 touchdowns. And that to me is the scary part every time you play him is that no lead is ever safe. You're on the other sideline and you can never take that deep breath and get comfortable in the moment, which is always what you want in the playoffs is you want to get to that moment where you go, all right, I feel comfortable. Just another game and we're rolling and we're feeling good. You can't ever get like that with Patrick Mahomes over there because you go, gosh, dang it. We got 2 touchdown lead. Well, we better go get another one. And so everything that you don't do as a team, in the back of your mind, it's like, oh, gosh, we needed to make that play. Even if we're up 14, we needed to make that play because Patrick's on the other side. And so he just is, to me, the ultimate difference maker in our league right now. And so I lean towards the Chiefs. I love this matchup. I think it's going to fully come down to these 2 quarterbacks. And can Josh Allen make enough of those difference-making throws to match Patrick Mahomes? And, I like the Chiefs defense. They played really well. Again, they played really good in the playoffs. They kind of seem to change their mantra a little bit in the playoffs. And so they've been really good in the playoffs. We saw them play earlier this year, even though, again, that was one of those games with weather, right?
Right.
It was just weather, kind of crappy weather in that game. So you didn't really get to see the best of both teams, I don't think. But Kansas City showed you that they could find a way to win even in weather. They ran the football really, really well. I don't expect that to be the case necessarily. I think it will fall to these two quarterbacks. But again, I just think that the Chiefs are just so good and so dominant offensively and can change the complexion of the game at any moment that I just have to give them a slight edge going into this game, even though I love the way that Buffalo's playing.
Time for a quick timeout to tell you about a few of our sponsors. And we start with Greens Plus, a health food leader since 1989, known for creating the first ever blended green superfood powder and the first company to infuse that green superfood into a bar. The bars, powders, taste great. The most effective way to improve your immunity, detox your body, boost your energy, and get that nutritional insurance that your body deserves. All organic, gluten-free, available at Whole Foods, Amazon, or greensplus.com. I recommend going to greensplus.com because you get 20% off if you use the promo code Hellie. You like smoothies? Throw some wild berry superfood powder in there. Greens Plus. At Vaco, the motto is we invest in your career, so you are here for the duration of ours. Vaco, a premier talent and solutions firm that provides boutique-level service with global reach in the areas of consulting, consultative project resources, executive search, permanent placement, and strategic staffing. You need somebody to fill that C-suite position, Vaco has you covered. Their areas of expertise all across the board, folks. Accounting, finance, tech, healthcare IT, ops, administration, or international managed services. They were founded in 2002. One of the founding partners, my good buddy Brian Waller, a University of Tennessee alum. He did not like how things went this past weekend against Georgia, I can tell you that much. But Vaco's still growing. They serve over 40 markets across the globe, 1,000 employees, 5,000 consultants, and $750 million in revenue. At Vaco, they're doing it right. Check them out, vaco.com. That's VACO.com for more info on how they can connect people to their dream jobs and help leading companies find talent to grow their business. I'm not sure how long it's been. I think probably 3 months or so, but I tried this new product called True Niagen, and I think you should too. There is a trend, MJD, in the scientific community that surrounds the health of our cells. It affects all of us, from former athletes like you to the weekend warriors like myself. We have something in our cells called NAD, which supports our energy and our body's ability to repair itself all the way down to the cellular level. Well, it turns out that NAD declines as we age. It also declines when we overexercise or we don't sleep enough, and even when we're exposed to a virus. There is only one NAD booster that is backed by Nobel Prize-winning scientists, 10 published human studies, and regulatory approvals for safety, and that is True Niagen. Visit TrueNiagen.com to learn more. That's TruNiagen. I haven't been sick in 3 months since I've taken this stuff. It's good.
All right, I want to hit on a couple of overarching NFL topics here that everybody's talking about before we get into a little Kurt Warner. Deshaun Watson. Looks like he very well could be done in Houston. When you played and you were at your peak in St. Louis and here in Arizona, how much did you talk to ownership about decisions that were being made? And should you expect that as a franchise quarterback?
I never did. I never expected that. I mean, I was always, open to sharing my thoughts with them, at different times when they would ask me, but it was never anything, never anything that they really asked me to do, and never anything that I really wanted to be a part of. Now again, if there were certain players on my team that I felt were special players, I would definitely go to bat for them with our organization. But, I was one of those guys that just, when I focused on my job, it was about playing quarterback, and it was about doing what I do. I didn't study general managers. I didn't study other coaches. I wasn't, privy to a lot of information about, even other players, that were free agents or whatever. And so I just didn't look at that as my role. And so I didn't feel like I could go into, like, I could listen to an interview with a coach and I could tell you, hey, really liked this and I really like that. But at the end of the day, I can't tell you if this guy's going to be great for my organization. I can tell you what I like and what I want to see in a head coach. And even more so with a general manager. Like, God, I don't know. I don't know what their job is. I don't know what they need to be good at. I couldn't tell you.
Just draft me some wide receivers.
Right, which one's good and which one's not. And so I think there's so many pieces to that, yes, it would be nice, and Deshaun Watson, obviously the face of the franchise, to have a say or to at least be a part of the process. But I never expected that because I also knew that wasn't my area of expertise.
Well, so when you look at his situation, he was asked for his opinion. He gave it, and they basically just discarded it. And then after the fact, they're like, "Oh, let's bring in Bieniemy after the fact."
Well, but that's the whole other side of it, right? Is like, okay, ask me to be a part of it. Okay, well, here, I've heard good things about so and so and so and so. Okay, we appreciate that. We've heard good things too, but after doing our due diligence, we're going to go this direction. So now how do you feel as a franchise quarterback? Like, they asked me and now they didn't even take me.
You feel exactly like he feels right now.
You feel like they didn't even listen to you, even though, whereas maybe they listened to you, but maybe they know a little bit more. They know what they want, or maybe it's not exactly the same. And so, it's a slippery slope either way, is that unless your franchise guy is a part of it and you hire exactly who he wants, does it solve any of these questions whatsoever? Because, like I said, I would go back to the standpoint that I had to be realistic and go, I don't really know, what a good general manager is. When it comes to a head coach, I can tell you the kind of offense I want to run. And, if I like his personality, but that doesn't mean he's going to be a great coach. So I had to be realistic with what my expectations were. But I just think that's a slippery slope. Anytime you ask a player, hey, we'd like your input and we want you involved, I think it's you got to be up front and go, but that doesn't mean that even if we like the guy that you like, that we're going to hire him and we think he's the best guy for the job. So can you handle that?
Right.
Can you handle if you give us input and we go another direction? What does that look like? And so I think it's a very, very tough thing. I understand it. And it sounds great to make sure your franchise players are involved in the process. But I just think there's so much more to it that you have to be realistic with what exactly that means and how that could play out. And you can't let that become something that's divisive between you as a player and your organization. Because, again, I just think there's too many pieces in place that make it hard and make it so somebody could be offended, right? Somebody could be hit the wrong way with the whole process, whether the ownership is doing what they said they were going to do from the beginning, but it just doesn't line up with what the player wants. I just think it's a tough, slippery slope, and I never got really involved in that unless somebody reached out to me and said, hey, what do you think about this guy? Or what do you think about, this player? Should we keep him? Should we let him go? Or should we go somewhere else? I would gladly give my opinion and be happy to do so and feel like, hey, that's great that they're giving me a hand in this. But I also never expected whatever I said to be held to the highest degree where, hey, well, Kurt said it, so we have to do this. I was realistic to know what my role was.
So if Deshaun Watson called you and said, hey, Kurt, I'm past the point of no return. I don't want to play for these guys anymore. What would you tell him?
Well, I mean, yeah, I think that's a hard thing. And I would just say, don't ever paint yourself into a corner. I think the bottom line is, I don't know if he can get out or not, but the only way for him to be great is he has to embrace whatever situation he's in. And so if he felt like he couldn't play there, that's a scary proposition because he might have to play there. And if you might have to play there and you say to yourself, I can't ever play here again, what does that mean? What does that look like? How do you go and compete? Or, you never want to see a guy like Deshaun Watson, hold out or force his hand or be somebody that he's not as a person, because he's a great young man. I love this kid. And now, you wonder how this is all going to play out and how people are going to look at both sides when it's all said and done. I think I would just tell him, take a step back. Take a step back, and I understand. I had people tell me when I went to Arizona, don't go to Arizona. Don't go to that organization because how it's run and the way people view it and the perception, and you're not going to get the opportunity. I went to Arizona anyways, and I understood what people were saying when I got there. But my role became, okay, how do I change that?
And you did.
How do I impact this organization so they see themselves differently, so they understand what it takes to win, what ownership needs to do, what players need to do. And, and that became a huge challenge for me. And to me, one of the crowning achievements of my career was to leave Arizona in a different place than it was when I got there. To have people believing, whether it be in the organization or outside the organization, that this place is different now than it was when I got there. And, I think Deshaun Watson is going to be in a situation, possibly in Houston, to do that exact thing. And, how special that would be at the end of your career. So don't paint yourself into a corner and say, I can't do this. I can't make this work. There may be some distinct challenges, and there may be some things that they have to work through from ownership to franchise player. But I wouldn't just throw away this situation and his situation, with Houston and as a franchise player and around the league, just because this thing kind of went sideways here. I think there's a chance to work through this and make it something really, really special in the long term. But I think there's always the other side too. I don't know if I fully understand. I would have to hear from Deshaun. Okay, you got to tell me what exactly are you talking about? What are the levels we're talking about? What has happened here where, again, I think there's places you go and you go, we'll never win here. We're never going to win here unless something changes. And that's a hard place to be as well. If you really feel like you're not ever going to be able to make those strides as a great young talent. So I think I would have to hear all the different levels. But I think, the first thing I would say is, okay, let's stop right there. Let's step back. Let's weigh everything. Let's talk through the whole entire situation. And let's see what we believe can be done either in Houston, or if it can't be Houston, where you can go and how you can do this the right way somewhere else. But I think it's really hard to speculate when you're just sitting looking on the outside, because there's so many different ways that I think you could take it.
After the Rams lost, Sean McVay said, he was asked about Jared Goff. He said, I'm evaluating everything and everybody on the team. To me, knowing Sean a little bit, that's a coach's way of just, it's a non-answer, right? Yeah. You always evaluate everything, right? Yeah. Of course, that's a given. But do you think there's really a chance that they don't move forward with Jared Goff, or are they too far down the road with him already?
I don't think there's a chance. And, here's the thing when it comes to quarterbacks is we've got a handful of quarterbacks in our league that are just special, unique, guys that can carry a team with their right arm, just those guys, what I consider franchise guys. And everybody else usually has some deficiencies. And everybody else usually is, and for lack of a better term, we'll use a system quarterback, because we're all system quarterbacks. But it means they can play really, really well in a system. Mm-hmm. But when they get away from that system, they're probably not going to be a spectacular quarterback like, the Breezes and the Bradys and the Rodgers and the Mahomes. And so we have to understand that there's only a handful of those guys ever, at all times, there's only a handful of those guys. So now the question becomes, where's our guy? Who is our guy? Well, Jared Goff has won a lot of football games. Jared Goff has played in a Super Bowl. Jared Goff has shown that he can play at an extremely high level in the NFL. What I see with Jared Goff is when he plays within Sean McVay's system and they can play the way they want to play, he's a really good quarterback in the NFL. When they force him to play outside of that, when they force him to be a drop-back quarterback, when they force that team to have to rely on Jared's right arm, he's a very average quarterback. Okay, so now what do we do with that? Is there a guy out there that can be both? There's not very many of those guys. So what I believe is that we've got the right system and we've got the right quarterback for our system. Our goal has to be to just continually surround him with players so we can play in our system more and more and more and more, and we don't get away from that, because when we do, Jared's probably going to be what we've seen Jared be in those situations, and that's not the great Jared Goff. That's an average quarterback. But when you weigh all of those things, it's not just A, who is our guy and what is his ceiling, but it's also B, if we don't have him, who do we got?
Exactly.
Who can we
Right.
get? Who's the next guy that we believe can be better, either in our system or that transcendent quarterback? Do we have access to that guy? And, so when you put those two things together, most organizations are going to have to settle for a really good quarterback in their system that may not be transcendent. That, to me, is what Jared Goff has shown himself to be. And it's been really good for the Rams. Are they going to compete for championships every year? Probably not, because their quarterback isn't that guy. But they will be a good team year in and year out within that system, as long as they fill that system with the right guys, with Jared Goff as their quarterback. And I think most organizations are going to be happy with that and going to realize, hey, it's better than the alternative of constantly searching for a guy that we can win with. We've got a guy we can win with. If we ever get to the point where we think there's a transcendent guy that we believe can do more, now we have to weigh, do we go transcendent over Jared Goff? But until that time comes, I think the Rams are in great shape with their quarterback, with their system, and the way that they've built things.
Speaking of transcendent, it was 2 years ago that we thought Carson Wentz had the potential to be transcendent. And then he fell off an absolute cliff, and it cost his head coach his job. Can he be fixed?
The term fixing is always an interesting one to me, because you first have to tell me what exactly is wrong. I got to understand how you go from playing at the MVP level like he did to playing like he did this year. And I've always felt like there's some deficiencies in Carson's game. And I felt like he's overcome them at times because he's really, really talented. But they were things that would continually show up year in and year out, game in and game out. And that was the first thing that I always said is, I don't think this guy will ever be consistently great until he fixes some of those issues. Another thing that I see is that I see too often that Carson's really good when his first receiver is open. Meaning, hey, when I got to grip it and rip it to that guy, I can do that. Well, most quarterbacks in this league can do that and have a level of success when their first guy is open. He has struggled to process information and get to his 2 and his 3 and his 4 on a consistent basis and make those plays. And so those are issues that I've seen. And so I don't know if he ever really had those things and now he needs to be fixed, or if those are issues that are within Carson Wentz that if he's ever going to be fixed or get back to that level, he has got to figure out a way to do those things better. And he's got to focus in on those things, and whether that's a new coach, whether that's a different system, or whether that's personal to him to go, hey, I have got to focus on these things because these things are costing me on a year-to-year basis. And so, again, that's a long-winded answer to go, I don't really know what the true problem is with Carson Wentz. And until I could understand that and how far he has to go, I don't know if we'll ever see that Carson Wentz again. We've seen quarterbacks, Matt Ryan, Cam Newton, Carson Wentz, that have had that one season that is like so far out there that you go, oh my gosh, MVP seasons,
right, where's this
goes
been?
to the Super Bowl, and you go, holy cow. This guy, if he can do this and bottle this up, he'll be one of the greats. But then it was that one season. And every other season was kind of, okay, so now instead of looking at the one great season and saying, oh, that's what his potential is, you start looking and going, oh, wait, that was one that just kind of stuck out. That was, something that was just an outlier for us. Who this guy is all these other seasons stacked together. And I think we have to try to figure that out with Carson Wentz as well. Was that just a special season where everything came together and he played it at an unbelievable level? And now outside of that, we've seen very average, good moments, bad moments, Carson Wentz. Or is that MVP type season more of who he is? And as you said, it just got broke. It got off. It got, messed up because of all his weapons being hurt, and him having to try to do everything for his team.
Everything.
Right.
Everything was bad.
There was a lot of issues, right?
Yeah.
And so it's easy to go, oh, well, it was probably all the other issues. But that's, I think, my point is that we've got to figure out really who Carson Wentz is. I don't think we fully know that at this point. And then you start to shape your narrative based on, Carson's, kind of like we just talked about with Jared. Jared's this guy. I mean, I think I have a pretty good sense of who Jared Goff is and what he's going to give me on an every down basis. Matt Ryan, same way. Cam Newton, same way. Yes, they had the outlier MVP seasons, but that isn't who they've been for the majority of their career. We've got to figure out who Carson Wentz is before we can say, does he need to be fixed, or is this just who Carson Wentz is? And I believe Carson Wentz is a good enough talent to win in the National Football League, but I don't know at what level I'm going to expect him to play every time out until I get more of a sense of who he is.
So today, as of right now, it looks like Josh McDaniels is the front runner for that Eagles job. Do you think that'd be a good marriage?
I like Josh McDaniels. I know there's been some crazy things with Josh and head coaching.
He's burned a lot of bridges.
Yeah, I mean, it's been some weird situations there that I can't really speak to. When I watch Josh and what he's done on film, I love what he does on film. I think he's a very, very smart offensive mind, very innovative, creative to be able to find different ways to win. And when I've been around him personally, I really, really like him. I like the way that he carries himself. I like the confidence that he has. I don't, get a sense of arrogance or any of this stuff that sometimes I think comes with, oh, he had a head coaching job and then he pulled out at the last minute. What the heck? What's wrong with this guy? I don't ever get that sense when I'm around him. So I really, really like him and think he's got a chance to be a really, really good head coach. And so I'm surprised it's taken this long for him to get that second chance. But I think he'll be a good fit in a lot of places because I just like his demeanor. I like the way that he works with his quarterbacks. I like his offensive mind. I think anywhere that's open would be a great spot for him. And I think Philly's a great spot for anybody. I think there's a great opportunity there with their history and their ownership there. But as kind of we've heard with Doug Peterson, you better buy into what the ownership is selling, right? It seems like you've really got to connect with the ownership and be on the same page. I think that would be hard for any head coach. You come in with your own ideals and thoughts, and Doug Peterson won a Super Bowl, for goodness sake.
Not that long ago.
That it's like, I've got my own thoughts. I want to be able to run my own ship. So it sure seems like whoever goes there, if it is Josh or whomever else, you really better be connected with the philosophy of the organization. And that's one thing that could be a little bit dicey for really any head coach. But I think Josh will do a great job in Philly or anywhere else.
Last coaching question. When you look at the guys who have gotten jobs so far, Robert Saleh in New York, Arthur Smith with the Falcons, Brandon Staley just happened yesterday with the Chargers, and then Urban Meyer in Jacksonville. Is there one of those that you like more than the rest? Or I know you say you're not in the business of hiring GMs and head coaches, but is there one that sticks out?
Well, I just think it's such a different beast to be a head coach. Like, I've been around some great offense and defensive minds, guys that are just great at being coordinators. They haven't all been great at being head coaches. It hasn't been the right fit for them to have to lead men. And I've always said that I think the hardest thing about being a head coach is getting up in front of 53 men every single day and connecting with them and getting them to hear your voice and listen to your voice. And so that to me is the hard part for me to always gauge when, these guys are getting head coaching jobs. Staley, he's done an unbelievable job with the Rams defense. Great.
He's been a DC for 1 year.
But I don't know. Get in front of 53 guys. I don't know what he's going to be like. Robert Saleh, everything I've seen from him, he's got tremendous presence. And, I think he would be really good in front of 53 guys. But again, there's so much that goes into it that go beyond speaking to your guys or coaching defense, dealing with the media and being able to handle and juggle everything that you have to juggle. And so I don't know. Urban Meyer, I love the hire because Urban has been a great head coach. He has been great at leading men. When you hear him on the college, game day shows, I love the nuggets that he throws out there and the motivation and you can tell that he's got a process to how he leads men and how he coaches. And I think going down there, he takes that job as a head coach. He doesn't take it as an offensive mind or saying, I got to run he takes it as a head coach.
And that's what he's always been with him too. Like he is the ultimate CEO, right? He lets other people coach the defense, coach the offense.
And I love that because I do believe, a lot of good head coaches I've been around have been able to kind of delegate and say, I don't have to have my full hand in one side or the other. I need to lead these men and I need to lead my coaches. And so I like Urban Meyer in that type of environment and the way that he's taken that job, as opposed to offense coordinators and defense coordinators taking head coaching jobs. I'm not here to say that can't be done. We've seen it done and we've seen it done well. I've also seen it done not so well, where they just can't figure out the balance between how do I do what I'm really good at and what I love in the offense or the defense and handle the head coaching responsibilities. So, I look at all these guys and I fully understand why they got head coaching jobs, the great jobs they did in their last role, but none of that to me guarantees that they're going to be a great head coach. So I do not know, what I think about all these hires. I'll tell you in 3 years, whether they were a good hire or not, because I just am not privy to A, personal relationships with those guys, but B, what it takes to lead an organization. And all the organizations are different, right? You got to deal with certain things in the past and, certain things within an organization and the mindset of an organization. And you got to change that and you got to be able to handle that. And you got to be able to figure out, how do I get the pieces like I had, how do I get a, Jalen Ramsey and an Aaron Donald, with the Chargers? How do I figure that out? I mean, because all that stuff plays into it. And so, I'm just one, that at the end of the day, sometimes it's about a guy not being able to be a great head coach. Other times it's about a guy maybe having the ability to be a great head coach, but not being put in a position to have a great situation and to be able to become a great head coach because the pieces aren't in place for you. So, I'm not one to go, oh, that guy got fired. He's a terrible head coach. Well, sometimes guys have things stacked against them. And so I think there's just a lot of things to weigh before I can really say, oh, that was a great hire or that wasn't a very good hire.
All right, no more football questions. But I do have a question for you because I've been hearing about this American Underdog movie forever. Is shooting started yet? And when is this going to happen?
It's actually starting within a week.
Okay.
And so they are all sequestered in Oklahoma City, which is where they're going to do the taping, and everybody's down there doing all their COVID protocols, and they are set up to start shooting next week. So it's really happening, or at least it appears to be really happening. It's been a long time in the making, and a lot of different pieces that have come into play. But we're excited about where we're at. We're excited about where the script is right now, but still a long way to go. But it sure looks like it's going to happen.
So this is the Kurt and Brenda Warner story, one of the great stories in NFL history. Your background, everybody knows it, so I'm not going to go through it. I'm more fascinated about the process of getting the movie made because this has been talked about for years, right?
Well, the big thing is ever since it all went down, everybody's always said, oh, your story is made for the big screen and made for the movies, and and we've heard all that, and we know that it's it's a unique, one of a kind story, and so we always felt, hey, that would be really cool if it ever came to pass and we got it on the big screen, because we felt like we could really encourage and inspire people through the story. But we've also said from day one that we don't want to do it just to do it. We don't want to do it just because it's a cool story if we don't have the right essence of the story in the script. And so that's why the process has drug out a little bit. We've had a number of different writers that never really got the essence of who we are and really the story that we wanted to tell. Because, oftentimes, you've seen a million sports movies.
Sure.
Great sports movies aren't about sports. Great sports movies are about the story and the relationships and the way it transpires. And so that always has been a big part of what we've wanted to do, is we've wanted to tell this story the right way. And it's the football part of it, but it's the relationship between Brenda and I, and it's the struggle that went into it. And it's, the story of our son who suffered a traumatic brain injury and the challenges that he faced, and, how the stories kind of parallel as we, we're doing this thing separately, and then we did this thing together, and, and ultimately kind of all of that plays out on the football field in an incredible story. But we wanted to make sure that this was a story that wasn't just football. It wasn't just somebody going to the movies and getting to see touchdown passes thrown and Super Bowls won. It was about people truly being impacted by the people that make this story what it is. And so that's really been the process, is trying to get that right. So when people see it, whether you're a young kid or you're an old man, whether you're in a relationship or you find yourself trying to struggle to figure out what life has for you, that it will have something that can impact and inspire and encourage everybody, because that to me is what the Kurt Warner story or the American Underdog is all about. It's about real life, and it's about going through the challenges of life and somehow wading your way through it and not letting all the gunk and all the circumstances define who you are as a person. That to me is my story. And that's the story of most people, right? Is they find themselves in the same places that I found myself, or that my wife found herself. And they're stuck there going, okay, where do we go from here? What's next? Is this all there is? Or is this going to be the excuse on why I don't become what I want to become? And we were able to kind of push through that and find our way and be able to kind of live the American dream. And that's really what we want our story to share with anybody and everybody, no matter where they're at in life, is that don't ever let your circumstances define you. There's more to you, and there's more to your purpose than what it may look like right now. Now it's about figuring out how to get through that to get to that place that you've always wanted to be.
So how many different iterations of scripts were there? How many were written?
There really was, I would say, four different ones. Just trying to, find that balance. Some more football oriented, some that went, almost too far the other way. But it's a way to try to connect all of the pieces together. And, that's always the tricky part in any script, right? Is, the story could write itself if it was just, hey, let's talk about, going from a grocery store to, to winning a Super Bowl. But, to me, what made it so great was, what went into it and the development of who I was as a person and how that correlated to who I was as a football player. Where a lot of people will just see the football. Well, he went from here being on the bench, and then he went this, and then he went there. It's like, but to me, so much of that football arc coincided with my personal arc and who I was as a person and where I got my worth and where I got my purpose, and ultimately how those things would end up shaping who I was as a player and what I stood for when I got between those lines. And that to me is what I want the story to be. That's what I want people to walk away from. Not, hey, he went on and he won a Super Bowl.
Right.
But no, it was who those people were that drove them and got them to the pinnacle. And that's what I want people to do, is look inside and say, what is it that makes me who I am? That separates me from everybody else, that will allow me to work through whatever garbage I got to work through to ultimately be what God's, called me to be. And that's what we want the story to be.
So Zachary Levi is playing you?
He is. I got a superhero playing me.
Did you pick him?
Yeah, no. I mean, it's kind of like the whole thing with the franchise guy picking the head coach and the general manager. I don't know anything about casting. I don't know anything about who plays what role and how that all fits together. So my biggest hand was in the script that I enjoy writing. I had a vision for what I kind of thought this story would be. And so I've had a bigger say in going through the script and shaping that and different sequences that I think could help bring to light what the essence of the story is. My wife has been a little more involved in the, in the casting part of it.
I can imagine.
She watches a little more TV. She understands different people that are hot and what's going on and how it fits. And so she's had a little more say. I won't even say, but she's been more interested in that side of things where I want the story right. She wants the casting right, which I understand, especially with all the different haircuts. You got to make sure you got to find somebody.
So who's playing Brenda?
Anna Paquin is playing Brenda.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
And Zachary Levi will be playing me, and then a number of other, great actors are going to be playing other different roles. So, I mean, I'm excited about where the cast is as well as I'm starting to see pieces in place. And again, I'm not a big TV guy and don't, but recognize a lot of the guys and understand, a lot of the roles that they've played. So I'm excited about it. But again, to me, I don't care who you have playing who at the end of the day, as long as the story is right and the essence is right. And if the actors can do that, then we've got the perfect actors for the role. And that's what I'm believing for.
Well, you got the movie coming out. You're at NFL Network, of course. You're calling games. You're doing the Westwood one for the NFC Championship game. And you have this QB confidential thing that you started. Right. And we talked about this a while ago. Yeah. And I know you are always so giving with your time and offering to help coach quarterbacks. And, hey, come out here, work with me for a little while. Yeah. And you were always so taken aback by how few people actually took you up on this offer, which is just insanity that more guys didn't do it. But now you're doing this QB confidential. Could it lead to more of that, more of working with guys? I know you're trying to educate the masses.
Yeah, possibly, and as you said, my greatest passion for this game is the X's and O's and the design of the game and, the quarterback position and playing it the right way, mentally and physically. And so, as you said, I always knew that I wasn't going to get into full-time coaching because, I always say that I'm too blessed to coach because, I got kids, I got family, I'm blessed with what I have that I can't give up 60 hours a week to do the full-time coaching. So I've always wanted to be like a consultant, like an offensive consultant where, hey, call me in, I'll watch the film and we'll put together a game plan together. I love that stuff. I love talking to quarterbacks about, okay, what are you seeing here and why? And how can we make this easier for you? And as you said, I've reached out to so many people over the years, but ironically enough, it was through COVID. A lot of the normal traveling that I did in the off season was squashed. And so a lot of what I did was I had a number of college offense coordinators that called me and said, hey, will you go through my offense with me? And can we just kind of talk about what you see and what you think? A lot of colleges would invite me to their quarterback room. So I would develop relationships with different quarterbacks. And so it became really the first time that I got a chance to step back and do some of this consulting stuff and have the time to do it. And, and as we've said, it's still not enough, right? Because, you sit down with a Zoom meeting, you can only reach so many people. You can only do so much. And so it ultimately became, well, I've got time right now to do something that I've always wanted to do. And that's reach the masses with my passion for this game. And so I jumped into developing QB Confidential. And I'm so excited about it because I do believe it's something that can impact quarterbacks, coaches, players at every level, from a beginning level all the way up to the NFL level. It's something that everybody will be able to have access to. And it's something that allows me to kind of hit on all the things that I think are important in football. And so, we designed and set up where I'll have content being released 5 days a week, at least for the first year. So it's kind of like a curriculum. And I'll have, Blackboard stuff. So, kind of building your IQ. I'll have on the field stuff. So it's about technique and building your technique. We'll go inside the playbook, which is something that fascinates me, the details of a playbook and building a playbook and the nuances of different plays. I'm going to have something that I call outside the box. And so that is more, as we talked about the movie, more about the essence of my story. Different things and stories that I'm going to share, kind of like a TED Talk each and every time. It'd be
That's cool.
5 to 10 minutes, me sharing a story, me sharing something that impacted me along the way, whether it was a coach or an instance or something that happened on the field. So kind of a motivational mindset building aspect. And then there'll be the film study. And I don't know if you've seen on my Twitter up to this point, I do a lot of these things we call study ball. Mm-hmm. So everything within QB Confidential is kind of designed around, kind of like school. We got the Blackboard basics and we got study ball. So it's kind of like study hall, right? It's at end of the week. You want a little extra time, learning the nuances of the game. We'll go inside the film room and teach how to watch film and what the nuances are. So it will have all these components that people will be able to tap into. Some will like all of it. Some will like, different pieces of it. But I'm extremely excited about it because I do think it can be something that can take guys from a beginning level to an advanced level and teach them all the nuances that they need to know in all those different areas. And, some of it, so much to cover. So some may not be covered, but it might be transforming the mindset of what these players and coaches think that helps them to direct it on what they're trying to do. So it's a way that I can control it, right? Because having people come out here every single day, you're only going to reach so many people. This is a chance to reach everybody. And it would be built in a way, as I said, kind of like a curriculum where it can continue to pass itself on for years to come, that everybody will get on and they'll get to start on day one. And they'll get to take the process throughout. So 10 years from now, when there's a young quarterback that's, wanting to learn the game or learn the position, boom, they can jump in and they can start at that same place. And so I think it's something that's going to be able to live for years and years to come. As I advance in certain areas, there will still be the basics that will be set, and it will be housed, as we know now with social media and everything is media driven, that it will be something that can be saved for years and years to come. And so it will be something that I think will pay dividends for a long, long time. And so I'm really, really excited about it because it touches on everything that I'm passionate about within the game. And most importantly, it gives me a chance to reach anybody that wants to learn about the game in that manner or from me. Now I have the access to be able to do that.
Dude, you're not going to have time to play basketball anymore. You're going to have to retire.
We'll find time.
We'll
find time. I mean, and that's the other beautiful thing about it is that, it's all these tape sessions. So I can do it on my time. It's not giving up 60 hours a week. It's, hey, when I got 60 hours in a week, boom, 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 I'll knock this out. I'll build this thing. When I want to go on vacation with my wife, I can do that because I got other things in place. So, I think that's the beauty of it is that, we look at all these things in life. And as I was just saying with the movie, don't let your circumstances define you. COVID was something that I never thought in my lifetime I would ever see. Us hit with a pandemic like this that would change the landscape of the world that we live in. But in the midst of that, I've found a way to do something that I've always wanted to do that I don't know if I ever would have done had I not had the time that was given to me through COVID. And, I think we've seen a lot of people that have done some great things reshaping their life through this to be able to move forward in a better way than they had before. And that to me is what excites me is that even in the midst of, what many of us will look back and say that was one of the crappiest years that I've ever lived in. I still think there's ways to redefine ourselves and do something impactful for other people. And QB Confidential, I think, is going to be one of those.
I think it sounds awesome. And the Hellie Pod, born in COVID, as so many of these were.
There you go. Exactly. That's exactly it.
Well, I appreciate it, brother. Thank you for the time.
You bet, man. Good talking to you.